If you've tried therapy, treatment, books, or programs, or all of the above, if you know what to do, but still find yourself stuck in the binge cycle or feeling out of control with food, this episode is going to offer something different. I'm sharing a new free resource that I created just for you and why I believe it fills in the missing piece that so many recovery paths leave out. Welcome to Binge Eating Breakthrough, the podcast to help you stop feeling out of control around food and build trust with your body. If you've tried everything but still feel stuck, you're not alone. I've been there too. I'm Jane Pilger, and I'm here to help you see binge eating in a new way so you can finally break free. Each week, you'll get the tools and insights to create peace with food and your body. Your breakthrough starts now. Hello, trusted listener. I consider you a trusted listener because trust is at the center of everything we do here. Trust in yourself, trust in your body, trust that your binge eating, your challenges with food make sense, and that healing is possible even if it hasn't happened yet. And trust takes time. So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, or even if you're here for the very first time, I want you to know that this space is built on the foundation of trust. And today, I'm excited to introduce you to something that feels deeply aligned, that goes along with the importance of trust. It's a free resource that I created called the Binge Breakthrough Miniseries. And I truly believe it offers the missing piece that so many people need in their recovery journeys. It is the piece I needed in my recovery journey. I could not have known as I was going through my own process what I needed, but this is what I would have loved to have had. And so I created it for you, for anyone who is still on their journey, who is still in the process of trying to figure things out. This is for you. But I want to give you a little bit of insight, a little bit of background story to just understand where I'm coming from, why I created this, and why it is a resource that I am excited to introduce to you. So personally, I spent over 2 decades trying to stop binge eating. My very first binge was my very first semester in college, in my dorm room, on the floor of my dorm room, eating an entire box of fun-sized candy bars that were sent to me as a gift. I don't remember the binge itself, but I so clearly remember the aftermath. I remember being surrounded by all of those wrappers and thinking, oh my gosh, what have I just done? I was filled with shame, I was filled with judgment, and I was convinced that number one, I had to stop this, and number two, nobody could ever know what I was doing. And I spent 25 years trying to stop. 2 rounds of intensive outpatient therapy. I worked with eating disorder specialists. I read every book. I listened to every podcast. I can still remember listening to the first, what I believe was the first ever podcast about binge eating. It was called Progress Over Perfection by a guy by the name of Alan Standish. The podcast does not exist anymore. But I remember listening to that podcast, and I can remember certain episodes. I can remember guests that he had that kind of took me on my own journey to various steps that I learned, and so many amazing things that I learned from people on my journey. And there are plenty of things that I had to unlearn that were not supportive for me. But along the way, I really have figured so many things out, not only for myself, but for the clients that I have helped over the years. And I want to bring these resources, this learning to you. One of the things that was so challenging for me in this whole process was even as I was going through recovery, even as I went through the first round of intensive outpatient therapy and I graduated and I thought I had it figured out, then I found myself months later back in the very same cycle, doing the very same things again. I remember how hard it was for me to admit that I needed to go back, that I hadn't actually figured it out. Every time I thought I've got this figured out, something else would happen and I would be right back in the cycle. I can remember even coaching people still. I remember one time so clearly, this was years ago, but I can remember doing a group coaching call for people who were struggling with binge eating with my stomach filled with food. I had binged leading right up into that call, and I got on that call so just immediately post binge filled with food. Now I have really cultivated the ability over the years to kind of disconnect myself from my body. It's part of what we do when we overeat, when we binge, when we eat so much food. We're able to kind of create that disconnection. So I was able to even do this call while still being in so much shame and judgment myself. But what was happening is I was actually able to kind of put that shame and judgment on the shelf and be like, I know I can help these people, even if I have a stomach full of food, even if I'm still in the process, I know I can help other people. But now when I look back on all of this, I can see so clearly what was missing. It wasn't strategies. It wasn't food rules. It wasn't counting. It wasn't limiting certain things. It was understanding. Nobody ever told me that binge eating was making sense in its own way, that it wasn't just a failure or a lack of willpower. Nobody told me it was my body's way of regulating, of coping, of trying to help me survive. When I think back to the times when I was in intensive outpatient therapy, they taught us a lot of skills. They taught us a lot of ways to look at things differently. But what they didn't do was help me make sense. Oh, this is why. This is why you are binging. I remember one appointment I had with, this was after IOP. I was still struggling. And I went to an eating disorders therapist. She was really the one who helped me meet me with compassion, showed me what compassion, what kindness, what understanding looked like. And as I explained to her everything that happened, I remember walking into that appointment. I remember driving up there, walking in and imagining, I know what she's going to tell me. She's going to tell me, I should have done this. I should have thought about this. I could have, tried some other technique or some other tool. And I tell her what happened during the day and I come recounting the binge. And she just looked at me and she said, of course you binged. I was like, what? What do you mean? And she was really able to help me see it in such a different way. Now, this doesn't mean that we were just like, okay, great, I binged, of course, great, let's move on. No, but to be met with understanding, to be met with compassion, to have her help me make sense. I was so used to making myself wrong for all of it and just wanting to stop it, that the idea that it made sense was completely, it was a very big perspective shift for me. Now, it can't just stop there. We can't just make sense of it and then from there think it's going to end. That's not how it works. But how it does work is to make sense of it, to make sense of our behavior. Binge eating is a symptom. It is not the problem. Binge eating is a light on the dashboard. It's a signal that something else is going on under the hood. And so when we really look at why does that start? Why does the binge eating start? And for various people, it's different reasons. So for some, binge eating starts after extreme dieting. For others, it's tied to trauma or emotional overwhelm, kind of that limited capacity to deal with big emotions. And oftentimes it's both. So you can think for yourself, when did this start? Some people have a pretty clear recollection. Other people don't. And it's okay if you don't know exactly. But if you do, if you know about the time that your challenges with food started, just think back to yourself. Was there extreme dieting going on kind of leading up to this? Was there some sort of trauma or emotional overwhelm going on? And you can kind of just start to make sense of when it started. But the real missing piece is understanding that binge eating is your body's best attempt to protect you when you don't have other tools to access safety or relief. And this is the piece that most treatment plans, therapists, and programs never gave me. They did give me some ideas, they gave me some tools, but they didn't help me put it all together. For so long, for me, it was really all about stopping the binge eating. It was about tracking my food. What have I eaten? Have I eaten? Whether it was calories, whether it was macros. When I went into treatment, they kind of took you away from all of that, but they still had you counting, you need this many fruits and this many vegetables and this many proteins. It was still focusing on the food. And we can't just entirely stop focusing on the food because food is important. But there's so much more to this than the food itself. And when I didn't understand why I was binging, why I felt so out of control around food, all I wanted to do was stop this terrible thing that I was doing. So I tried harder. I followed more plans. I eliminated more foods. I tracked obsessively. And sometimes it worked for a little while, but the cycle always came back. And each time it did, I blamed myself. And this is what I see in so many of my clients also. They've done the work. They're smart. They're driven. They've had periods of success, and then they've had periods where they feel like a failure. They're exhausted because they're trying to fix the symptom instead of understanding the source. So this is why I created the Binge Breakthrough mini-series, because this is the piece that's missing from so many recovery approaches. We're taught to manage food, avoid triggers, get rid of problem foods, or just bring it all in the house and let yourself eat whatever you want, whenever you want. None of that is going to work. Almost nobody is talking about what's really underneath. Nervous system dysregulation, emotional disconnection, perfectionism, shame, the unconscious drive to self-protect at all costs. I made this series so that you can finally see your binge eating, or if you don't identify with binge eating, your moments, your struggles with food, your times that you feel out of control around food, like food has power over you or you feel powerless. So you can see all of that through a new lens, one that is grounded in compassion, nervous system understanding, and real behavior insight. So you can stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking what's going on underneath. These videos are short, so you can fit them into your day and you can watch them at your own pace. And I've packed them with the exact insights that made the biggest difference for me and all of the clients that I've supported over the years. You'll hear my own personal story and the stories of a handful of my clients. You'll understand that you aren't alone, and you'll be able to identify why what you've done so far hasn't created the result that you really want for yourself. So a few people got early access to this miniseries, and I want to share with you what they said because it captures exactly what I hoped this miniseries would offer. They said, "There's hope. I feel like someone finally understands me. I don't feel so alone." One said, "This is a safe way to tiptoe into a really tender area." Somebody else said, "I see myself in this series, and for the first time, I see a way out." And finally, someone who's not trying to get food out of my house or tell me what to eat, but is helping me understand why I do this. And that's what this is. This is not a plan. This is not telling you what to do. This is giving you a new lens, a new perspective on what's really going on that is leading to you feeling out of control with food. So whether you've been binging for a few months or a few decades, whether you've tried every program or you've never told a soul about this was made for you. It doesn't matter how long it has been, how much you've eaten, or what your story looks like. If you feel stuck and part of you wants to believe it could be different, this is your invitation. Because binge eating makes sense. Your struggles with food make sense. You are not broken. There is a way out. And when you watch this miniseries, you will be able to see that you are not broken. You will be able to see the way out. You can start watching the miniseries today. Each video is short and digestible. You can move through them at your own pace whenever you're ready. I created this series so you can stop spinning in shame, confusion, and control, and finally start to understand why you binge, so that you can stop fighting the behavior and start building trust with food and with yourself. So to get started, go to janepilger.com/mini. M as in Mary, I, N as in Nancy, I, to begin. That's janepilger.com/mini. You can also find the link in the show notes. I want you to know you are not alone. You are not failing. This does not have to be your story forever. And if you felt like something is missing in your recovery, in your journey with food, it's because there is. And this series was made to help you find it. I can't wait for you to see what's possible on the other side. Check it out today at janepilger.com/mini. If you've been trying to stop binge eating and nothing has worked, there's a reason. I created the Binge Breakthrough miniseries to help you finally understand what's driving your binge eating beneath the surface so that you can actually start to change it. Each video is short and they're designed to give you the clarity and direction you've been missing so you can stop feeling stuck and start finding your way out. Start watching now at janepilger.com/mini. That's janepilger.com/mini. MINI.